Well, thank you, Duncan. A fabulous presentation on how to just bring himself to an audience. And what I'm going to talk about this evening is the whole idea of what goes into creating a lasting connection in a relationship. And in a way, Duncan has modeled it, but I'll get to that later. I wonder what you think goes into building lasting connections, relationships that can see through the challenges of life and time, whether they be work relationships, romantic relationships leading into a committed relationship, whether they be friendships, whatever the relationship is. What do you think goes into building a lasting, genuine connection? I was asking myself the question, trying to come up with one key for what goes into building a lasting connection, and I got the perfect answer in my mailbox. We get it on social media all the time, but I actually got a real postcard in my mailbox from my optometrist. And here it is, the answer to building the right kind of impression that really is going to make an impact forever, that you need to present your eyes well, and first impressions really count, and people are going to look into your eyes, and if you have the right spectacles, and you can project the perfect image to make a lasting impression. So there it is, got the answer from my optometrist. And I wonder what you think about this whole idea, the messages going on all around us on how to project an image that we're told is going to really connect with the person we're needing to establish some kind of a relationship with. Well, what do you think are the ramifications of this projecting an image based on imagining how the other person is going to perceive you? What are the effects of trying to work that out and putting your energy into that in thinking about your relationships? Making a project out of creating the drama that the spectacles create, to create the impression that's going to stand out above other people and connect you to the person who you think is going to give you the opportunity that you're looking for in whatever relationship domain that you're working in. Well, I have the key for you tonight. I wonder if you've already started thinking what it is. That the key to making a lasting impression is indeed to stop trying to impress, to give up this focus on the other, trying to figure out, mind read the other, what is it that they want. There are real implications to this energy directed into being what we perceive the other wants us to be. And the key problem with it is this loss of the ability to connect to ourselves in the relationship. We lose ourselves in the relationship because all of the energy is going into, am I meeting the expectations of the other, whatever those expectations might be. The more that we're focused on the other, reading the other, trying to impress the other, trying to connect with the other, there is a loss of relationship with ourselves. We lose that connection with ourselves. Let me tell you the story of Vivian, just a pseudonym, and for the guys here it could be Viv or Vivian. So Vivian had an opportunity for her dream job. She was involved with a recruitment agency. They called her, they said, here's the job for you. We know you're not really quite experienced enough, but we're going to help polish you up to get this job. And Vivian put so much energy into preparing herself for the job, doing all the homework on who her boss was, looking on LinkedIn, what's their style, what's important to them, where did they go to school. She did all the homework on the other, and she nailed that job interview. She got the job. She got incredible validation from her new boss, which was very steadying for her. Her boss said, I can't believe we found such a perfect fit for this position. So what do you think happened as she continued with this path of trying to figure out how she could maintain and sustain this positive connection into building her career in this new company? What happens for Vivian and for all of us when we put our energy into trying to meet the other's expectations is this cycle, a kind of a vicious cycle ensues. And here's what it looked like for Vivian. In the early stages of the job, honeymoon period. Lots of validation, lots of appreciation from her boss. But that's not sustainable. We know that in marriages, not sustainable in jobs, not sustainable in any relationship. And what happens to Vivian when her boss gets busy with other projects, there's a new employer coming in, the attention has shifted, she's not getting the attention she had before. She starts to feel anxious, unsettled. What have I done that has not pleased him? And her focus on pleasing the other ramps up even more. And so what happens then is she tries to pursue her boss, tries to show him her work, asks him lots of questions, asks lots of advice. How does her boss experience that? What's wrong with Vivian? She seems to have lost her confidence. He starts to worry about her. He starts to give her more support. He starts to monitor her more. He asks the HR department, is anything going on with Vivian? And Vivian becomes more and more sensitive to his monitoring, and before you know it, she has lost herself in this relationship because she invested in trying to impress the other. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? This happens in all kinds of relationships. And so if the answer is not focusing on others, where do we go with this in building lasting connections? It is not easy for any human being. We're so wired and sensitive. We're really relationally attuned to others. It's so difficult to not bring pretend to relationships. This is something I've written about, the being able to pick the difference between our pretend self. We all bring pretend to relationships, often outside of our awareness, and our kind of solid, really well thought through self. And I think it's useful to ask how much of myself changes in different relationship contexts. That's a way of measuring, is this my pretend self? Because I've adjusted myself like a chameleon in some way to fit in with what I perceive will connect with others. Or how much of who I am is pretty solid in every context and authentic. So, if indeed trying to win the favor of others is not going to get us a lasting connection, how do we tap into wisdom that shows us something different? Now, most of the area that I work in is a psychological theory of relationship, family systems theory, but I also have found it really interesting in preparing for tonight in considering the wisdom that I find in reading the words of Jesus in the Gospels. And here's a little brief section from the Gospel of Matthew in chapter 6. And here is Jesus of Nazareth himself talking about the dangers of people-pleasing. And what you've got here is a warning of practicing your impressiveness, your goodness, in front of others in order to be praised. Or what the verse goes on to say is, when giving to the needy, sound no trumpet, that you may be praised by others. Sound no trumpet. I love that. It's kind of the message, the key to forming relationships that last is take the trumpet playing. I mean, I love James Morrison and a good trumpet, but in terms of the words of the traps of getting caught up in people pleasing, I think it's useful to reflect on the meaning of the idea of trumpet playing, in trying to impress and focusing on the other. So, pulling things together. If there is no lasting benefit of trying to impress another, trying to research the other and give them what we think they want, what is the alternative? What is it? Well, I'm suggesting that the alternative is to focus on ourselves. Not a selfish focus, but what can we do to be truly present in meeting another rather than trying to impress the other? Can you recognize that in your workplaces or in different relationship settings? The power of a calm, thoughtful, ethical, real person in your midst. It brings good to the whole system of relationships. And for myself, I think about the burden of trying to win acceptance from others, and then I think about the words of Jesus to me, that I can cast my burdens on him and he will carry them, and this big, huge burden of trying to win the favor of others. It's just wonderful for me. It's better than any psychological theory to be released of that burden, to know that I am accepted for who I am as I am created to be. So whatever the latest slogan is, whatever my optometrist is trying to sell me to buy those expensive, snazzy new frames, creating an impression with others is not a useful pathway to take. Trying to focus on what they want from us. The healthiest path to take for ourselves and for sustainable relationships is to stop the focus on mind reading, making an impression. This was a game changer for Vivian. She could reverse the pattern she was caught in by reversing her focus back onto what was in her control, how to be a calmer, more thoughtful person. And that's the challenge, but it's also a great opportunity in building lasting connections, is being truly present, thoughtful, knowing our own mind, not in a dogmatic way. Strong dogmatism is also organized around the focus on the other. How can I make them agree with me? So whether it's people pleasing in terms of too much compromising and accommodating, or people pleasing through trying to get people to agree with us in strong stands that are too assertive. The difference is, in terms of building a lasting connection, to just bring oneself, the best of oneself, to the relationship, so that we are truly bringing some good things to relationships that are so important to our flourishing. Thank you.